Hey guys, welcome back to another video. This is Jebber Gaming Jaws, and I want to talk about what it's like to be a Final Fantasy fan in the year 2018. I've been a Final Fantasy fan for a long time, quite a while. I started with the PS1 games, went back and played the Super Nintendo games. I've never gotten to the NES games, played the PS2 games, took a break from gaming for about 7 years. My very first game coming back was Final Fantasy 13. Since then, some Final Fantasy 15. I've never gotten into the online games, but I've definitely noticed a trend. And when I left gaming when I was towards the end of high school. I was very casual through college. The only thing that I ever played basically was Mario Kart for GameCube in the dorm rooms at night. If people happened to be playing that was like it. I did not play any one-player games, just focused on life. And then it wasn't until I was probably 26, 25, 26 that I decided to buy a PS3 with Final Fantasy 13, and then I kind of like started accumulating my old systems again and playing some of the old games. And at that point I played Final Fantasy 12. So when I finished, my last Final Fantasy game that I had played was Final Fantasy 10, which is a very good game in my opinion. I love that game. I think it has an amazing story with really good, solid gameplay. I think that it's a true Final Fantasy. It had a few problems, like it was a bit linear and it stunk that there was no true airship. But the things that make up the game, were there. It was very story focused, very character focused, and it just felt very Final Fantasy, and it was really a beautiful game to me. Especially right before that, Final Fantasy 9. I mean, you can't get more Final Fantasy than that. That was absolutely stupendous game. It was incredible. So getting back into the series, I picked up Final Fantasy 13, and there were things I liked, things I didn't like. I didn't think that it was a terrible game, but I just, it felt like it was lacking. And that was the very first experience I had ever had with a Final Fantasy game where I would say something was lacking. I had never felt that way about a Final Fantasy game. So what was tough for me is like the story. I couldn't even tell at first if I liked it. It was so convoluted. There were so many, I've played the game a few times now, so I have a much better understanding of what's going on, but still, it's still really, really complex, and just not executed well. I think that that's probably the biggest issue that I have with the newer Final Fantasy games, starting with 12, 13, 13.2, 13.3, Lightning Returns, Final Fantasy 15. It's not even that these games don't have compelling characters or decent stories, at a base. It's more that it just seems like they have forgotten or lost their way in how to deliver these stories in a compelling way, in a well-paced way, in a way that makes you really feel gripped. The reason that I fell in love with Final Fantasy to begin with was the story. That was the main driving force. Like, I enjoyed the gameplay. I enjoyed the many long hours of grinding. I enjoyed the boss battles. I enjoyed collecting items. I enjoyed traversing a world map. I enjoyed going from different town to town and talking to NPCs and all that. But what really, really got me were the characters and the story. And that was true all the way through every game I had played. 4, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I love those games because of the stories and the characters, and that's what pulls me back and why I replay them to this day, why I love those games and always will. And thank God those games are permanently on my shelf, permanently in my heart and in my mind, and will always be revisited by me, every so often, because I just love them that much. When Final Fantasy 13 came out, I feel like the Final Fantasy community was very impassioned still. People were still really in love with the series and having a hard time with the direction that it was going. And I feel like now that's kind of almost fallen to the wayside, where when I play Final Fantasy 15, I almost am like, it was over a year ago that I played it. It was when it launched, so it was September of 2016. I said in a recent video 2017. I mean, that was wrong. It's more like now I go into it guarded. When I go into a Final Fantasy game now in the modern era, I go into them guarded. I don't go in just so excited and just I cannot wait. This is going to be amazing. I'm more like, okay, tentative. This is probably going to have some serious issues, some serious plot holes, some serious like character issue, some pacing issue. I don't know how the gameplay is going to be. It's way more of a timid approach, and it's more like you're pleasantly surprised when things go well. My first reaction to Final Fantasy 15 when I played it was jubilation, simply because it was better than 13. And it's tough. It's sad to say that, but it was. You know, Final Fantasy 15 has great bones to it. It just the story was not executed well, and I think that they just somehow ran out of time. I don't even know how that's possible with how much freaking time those people had to make that game. You know, decades, whatever. You know, it was way. It was such a long time that they were working on that game, and I just don't know how they ran out of time. They, you know, towards the end, I was really looking forward to it, and then they pushed it back a month, and I was like, seriously? You know, take your time, please, like, make it perfect, but, like, seriously? Like, why does this need to happen? And it was just very unfinished, and that's, you know, come to be seen as they continue to just release DLC after DLC after DLC and adding in story components and blah, 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 and just fleshing it out and making it a totally different game. It's hard to be a Final Fantasy fan these days if you remember the glory of the series in the past. I don't know that we're ever really going to get back to that. And it would be a little bit harder. I've definitely branched out more in my search for that spot to be filled, you know, in the JRPG genre especially, and just games with good stories and good character development. And there are so many good games out there. You know, I've played. I have nothing bad to say about this generation of gaming. Owning a PlayStation 4 has been one of the most enjoyable experiences of my life, especially my gaming life. It's awesome, and it brought me Persona 5. I mean, this game. Thank God for Atlus. Thank God for Persona. Like, they are doing it right. They are doing it well. Honestly, I am so much more in love with that series now in the modern era and going forward. You know, it's not Final Fantasy. It's not gripping me the way that Final Fantasy did back in the day. Nothing now probably could in that exact same way. But going forward, I am so much more excited for whenever Persona 6 comes out than whenever Final Fantasy 16 or whatever is the next entries in those two series comes out. So I think that I just wanted to talk a little bit about being a Final Fantasy fan now and just what that feels like. It feels, you know, a little bit tough. It feels like people look back on the old games and, you know, everybody always likes this one and that one. I love the Super Nintendo and PlayStation era so much. Like, those games I could play forever. They're great to me. It's not like they're perfect, all of them, but they're sublime experiences in my opinion. And I don't know why that's just so hard to get back with that series. I don't know what that is. I don't know why Final Fantasy can't do it. I don't know why other game developers are able to have like such compelling stories and characters and worlds, and for some reason Final Fantasy just kind of gimps along now. It's odd. It's perplexing. I don't understand it. Not that I hate the new games. Like, I should say, like, I liked 12. I liked 13 enough. I liked 15 pretty well. You know, like, they're good games. They're not great or amazing games. But that's in and of itself a little bit heartbreaking. So just wanted to process that a little bit. I feel like I've had these things in my head a little bit and just feeling like I need to get it out there. So, all right, guys, my thoughts on being a Final Fantasy fan of 2018. Later.